That expensive heirloom tomato you paid $6 a pound for? It ranked lower than a variety that costs 89 cents. The entire tomato industry has been lying to you about what quality actually means. And after testing 8 varieties back-to-back, I finally understand why my grandma refused to buy from supermarkets. Those giant red beefsteaks sitting in the grocery store produce section? They're lying to your face. Here's the dirty truth. These tomatoes weren't bred to taste good. They were engineered to survive a 2,000-mile truck ride without getting a single bruise. That's it. Flavor was never part of the conversation. And that vine-ripened sticker? Pure marketing garbage. Most commercial beefsteaks get yanked off the plant while they're still green as a traffic light. Then they ship them to warehouses where they blast them with ethylene gas to force that red color. It's like spray painting a rock to look like a strawberry. But here's what really gets me. Tomatoes grown in the 1940s had roughly 50% more sugar than what you're buying today. 50%. Breeders spent decades selecting for thick walls and tough skin instead of actual taste. Your grandmother's tomatoes weren't better because of nostalgia. They were legitimately a different food. Slice one of these imposters open sometime. Notice how pale and sad the interior looks? Those thick walls and hollow chambers mean you're basically eating water-flavored cellulose. Wet newspaper has more personality. Then there's the texture problem. You know that mealy, grainy mouthfeel that makes you question your life choices? That happens because stores refrigerate tomatoes even though cold temperatures destroy the cell structure. They know this. They do it anyway. I grew up thinking I hated fresh tomatoes. Turns out, I just hated these particular tomatoes. The supermarket beefsteak is the biggest fraud in the produce aisle. But wait, it gets worse. Because there's another tomato variety that somehow convinced everyone it belongs in salads, when it was literally designed for something completely different. Roma tomatoes have pulled off one of the greatest scams in grocery store history. These things were literally designed for canning. That's it. Sauce making, paste production. Nobody in Italy looked at a Roma and thought, you know what? This would be perfect sliced raw on a sandwich. Yet somehow, they ended up in every supermarket salad bar in America. Here's the problem. Romas have fewer juice pockets than other tomatoes. Those little compartments inside, they're called locules, and Romas barely have any. So when you bite into one raw, it's dry, almost chalky, like eating a tomato that forgot to show up to its own party. And that skin? Thick as a winter coat. Bred that way on purpose so mechanical harvesting machines in California's Central Valley could rough them up without causing damage. Great for industrial farming. Terrible for your taste buds. I once made the mistake of slicing Romas for a BLT. Let me tell you, it was like putting a rubber eraser between my bacon and lettuce. The texture just fights you. They're also packed with more pectin than most varieties. Pectin is wonderful if you're making jam or thickening a sauce for Sunday dinner. But in a fresh slice, it creates this weirdly firm, almost unnatural bite that just feels wrong. Now here's what frustrates me. Romas absolutely shine when you cook them down for hours. They transform into something genuinely delicious. Rich, concentrated, perfect for marinara. But eating one raw? That's like eating raw flour instead of bread. You're skipping the step that actually makes it good. Still, Romas beat out beefsteaks because at least they have a purpose. They're just wildly miscast in the fresh tomato role. Speaking of miscast, wait until you see what's next. Grape tomatoes took over America in 2003. Not because they won any taste competitions, not because chefs demanded them. They became the country's top-selling tomato variety because they're basically indestructible. That thick skin, specifically bred to prevent splitting during shipping, which sounds practical until you actually bite into one and get that weird squeaky texture, like eating a tiny water balloon made of rubber. Here's something wild. Most grape tomatoes sitting in your grocery store right now were harvested in Florida or Mexico up to 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks! At that point, you're not eating fresh produce. You're eating a vegetable with more travel miles than most people's vacation plans. Now, I'll give them this. The small size does concentrate sugars slightly, so they've got a leg up on those cardboard beefsteaks we talked about. But that's like saying getting a paper cut is better than stubbing your toe. You're still not having a good time. Want to know the math that really hurts? You need to eat nearly 20 grape tomatoes to get the same flavor impact as one quality heirloom slice. 20! That's not a snack, that's a workout for your jaw. My honest take? Grape tomatoes are the Honda Civic of the tomato world. Reliable, practical, gets you from point A to point B, and utterly, completely forgettable. Nobody ever said, "Remember that amazing grape tomato I had?" It just doesn't happen. They exist for convenience. Lunch boxes, salad bars, office snacking when you're pretending to be healthy. Fair enough, but we're ranking flavor here. And convenience without quality is just settling. Speaking of settling, there's another small tomato that actually bothers to taste like something. Now we're finally getting somewhere. Cherry tomatoes have thinner skins than their grape cousins. That alone makes a huge difference. Bite into one and you actually taste tomato, instead of fighting through a rubber casing first. The original cherry tomato? Wild plants from South America. Tiny little things growing on vines for thousands of years before anyone decided to mess with tomato genetics. These were the ancestors, the real deal. Here's where it gets interesting. There's a variety called Sun Gold that completely breaks the rules. Pop one in your mouth, and it tastes like someone crossed a tomato with a mango. Seriously, tropical candy levels of sweetness. My neighbor grew these last summer, and I may have stolen a few dozen. Sorry, Frank, but the science backs this up. Cherry tomatoes pack more lycopene per ounce than the big boys. Why? Because the good stuff concentrates in the skin. More skin-to-flesh ratio means more nutrients in every bite. Want a number that matters? Homegrown cherry tomatoes can hit 10 on the Brix scale. That measures sugar content. Grocery store beefsteaks? They barely scratch 4. We're talking more than double the sweetness from a fruit you can grow on your apartment balcony. And that's the beautiful part. These little plants produce fruit faster than large tomato varieties. No backyard needed. A sunny window works. A small pot on your fire escape works. Even my sister, who kills every plant she touches, managed to keep cherry tomatoes alive. That's saying something. So cherry tomatoes earn their spot as the first actually good option on this list. But here's the thing. We haven't talked about cooking tomatoes yet, and one Italian variety takes that crown by a mile. Now we're getting into the good stuff. San Marzano tomatoes have protected status in Europe, like champagne, like Parmesan cheese. You can't just slap that name on anything and call it a day. And there's a reason for that snobbery. These tomatoes grow in volcanic soil near Mount Vesuvius, and that mineral-rich dirt does something magical to the flavor. Low acidity, natural sweetness. When you make marinara sauce with real San Marzanos, you barely need any added sugar. Italian grandmothers have been guarding this variety for over 200 years, not because they're stubborn, because it cooks down into velvety sauce without turning bitter. Try that with a Roma, and you'll understand the difference real fast. But here's where it gets frustrating. About 95% of cans labeled San Marzano style in American stores are complete imposters. Grown in California. Grown in China. Grown anywhere except the actual volcanic slopes where they're supposed to come from. The real ones have a DOP certification on the label. No certification? You're paying premium prices for fancy marketing. What makes the authentic version special is the shape. Elongated. Minimal seed cavities. That means more actual tomato flesh per fruit than almost any other variety. You're not paying for water and seeds. Roast them slowly, and they develop this almost meaty richness. I made sauce with genuine San Marzanos once, and my regular grocery store tomatoes suddenly tasted like ketchup water in comparison. The downside? They're really meant for cooking. Eating one raw is fine, but you're wasting their potential. Speaking of wasted potential, there's one grocery store tomato that actually delivers on flavor promises, and it might already be sitting in your fridge. Here's the thing about grocery store tomatoes. Most of them deserve their cardboard reputation. But Campari? Campari is the exception that proves everyone's been settling for mediocrity. These little guys came out of the Netherlands in the 1990s, and here's what makes them different. Dutch breeders actually prioritized flavor first. Revolutionary concept, right? While American companies were engineering tomatoes to survive being thrown across warehouses, the Dutch asked a wild question. What if people actually want to enjoy eating these? The Brick scale measures sugar content in produce. Your average supermarket tomato limps in around 4, maybe 5 on a good day. Camparis consistently hits 7 to 9. That's nearly double the sweetness, and you can taste the difference immediately. Now, the vine thing. You've seen them sold still attached to the stem, looking all fancy and European. Here's the kicker. That's not just marketing. Keeping them on the vine actually does preserve freshness. The stem continues feeding the tomato even after harvest. It's like a tiny life support system sitting right there in your grocery cart. They're smaller than beefsteaks, which works in their favor. Smaller tomatoes ripen faster on the plant. More time actually maturing means more natural sugar development before some warehouse worker rips them off the vine. I keep a container of these in my fridge at all times. Are they as good as a sun-warmed Brandywine straight from the garden? Absolutely not. But at 11 p.m. in February, when I want a decent tomato on my sandwich, Camparis deliver. They're the compromise that doesn't feel like settling. Still, though, they're playing in a different league than what's coming next. Heirlooms saved from extinction for over a century. Brandywine tomatoes have been passed down from gardener to gardener since the 1880s. That's not a typo. People were saving these seeds before cars existed. And here's the thing about heirloom tomatoes. They're ugly. Really ugly. Cracks everywhere. Weird, lumpy shapes. Colors that look like something went wrong. But those flaws are actually proof you're holding something real. See, commercial breeders spent decades selecting tomatoes that look perfect on grocery shelves. Uniform red, smooth skin, no blemishes. The problem? Every time they bred for appearance, they accidentally bred out flavor compounds. It's like nature was playing a cruel joke. Brandywines went the opposite direction. Nobody cared what they looked like because nobody was shipping them cross-country. Grandma grew them in her backyard, sliced them on a plate, and that was that. The taste gets described the same way by almost everyone who tries one. This is what tomatoes used to taste like. Sweet and acidic in perfect balance. Complex. Actually memorable. Now, fair warning. These things take forever to grow. We're talking 90 to 100 days before harvest. Most hybrids produce in 60. So, yeah, patience required. But that extra month, it's building flavor. The plant keeps pumping sugars and acids into the fruit, while faster varieties are already sitting in a warehouse somewhere. One Brandywine can weigh over 2 pounds. A single fruit gives you enough for an entire caprese salad. Try doing that with grape tomatoes. You'd need like 40 of them. Makes sense why serious home gardeners obsess over these, right? But even Brandywine has to bow down to one variety. The tomato that wins blind taste tests against over 100 competitors. And its history goes back even further than you'd expect. Cherokee Purple isn't just the best tomato on this list. It's the best tomato, period. This variety traces back over 100 years to the Cherokee Nation in Tennessee. Real history, real heritage, and a flavor that makes every modern supermarket tomato seem like a cruel joke. That dark, purplish-red color? Not a gimmick. It comes from high anthocyanin content, the same antioxidant that makes blueberries a health food darling. So you're getting incredible taste and nutritional bragging rights. Here's what seals the deal. Blind taste tests have pitted Cherokee Purple against more than 100 other heirloom varieties. It wins, consistently. Different studies, different judges, same result. This tomato doesn't just compete. It embarrasses the competition. The flavor profile is almost unfair. Intense sweetness layered with rich, smoky complexity that lingers on your tongue. I've handed slices to people who swore they hated tomatoes. They asked for seconds. Now, why can't you find these at Walmart? Simple. The flesh is soft. The skin is thin. They'd turn to mush before the delivery truck left the parking lot. Commercial farming destroyed tomato flavor specifically because they needed fruits that could survive shipping. Cherokee Purple refused to compromise, and that stubbornness is exactly why it still tastes like something worth eating. One thick slice on toast with salt and mayo. That's it. That's the whole recipe for remembering what tomatoes are supposed to taste like. Your grandparents knew this flavor. Somewhere along the way, we traded it for convenience and uniformity. Cherokee Purple is proof that we didn't have to. So there you have it. 8 tomato varieties, ranked from cardboard disappointment to absolute perfection. The lesson? Stop accepting mediocrity. Grow your own, or hunt down the good stuff. Your taste buds will thank you.